Heather's going to introduce our guest speaker today. I'm so excited Christine's here. But I just wanted to thank everybody who's here today. I previewed this presentation and it's going to be packed with so much great information. So thank you all for being here. Thanks for attending, and I'll hand it off to Heather.
Perfect. Yeah, Dave and I are so excited to have Christine here today as our co-host. This is going to sound funny, but I kind of think of Christine as this checklist ninja. And I don't mean that to like put her in a box of only that, because she's so good at so many things. But while that doesn't sound exciting, trust me, when you see that like a simple act can exponentialize your structural output of your business, how it increases your happiness and reduces stress, her ability to see the big picture and then niche down into each micro step that could impact a client journey, I think it's impeccable. So Christine, just a little bit more about her. She co-led a top mega team, and then she became a solo agent, and now she's starting what she calls a micro team, and she operates in the Orlando, Florida market. She's also the co-founder of the Beehive, which, you guys, is another great community for realtors to communicate and collaborate. I highly suggest you check out what her and her friend Shaylin co-created. As well, we'll just be sure to include those details for you, for those of you that are interested in joining that community as well. But last but not least, I've been super lucky to be able to spend some more time with Christine, and I'll share that she's just a wonderful human being. And David and I are both big fans of her. And now, without further ado, I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm going to hand this over to Christine so you can jump into this amazing presentation you put together for us.
Oh my gosh, you were so nice, Heather. You guys are so kind. And I feel like I'm the one receiving all of the value when I'm around you and David, because you guys are just absolutely incredible, visioning a bigger business and items for scaling and systems and all of the things. So I'm just always like delighted when I can spend more time with you. But I'm going to share my screen here. And I am sharing 5 simple accelerators that anybody who is working with buyers in today's market should be able to implement and see an instant lift in their conversion. So we'll just dive right on into it. But before we start, I do want to say that this isn't a magic pill. All of this stuff in here isn't the silver bullet or, the shortcut. There are no shortcuts in real estate, and I think you guys can attest to that. You have to put in the work. So those of you that are going to get the most out of this presentation, you're already doing the work. You're not, working like 5 hours a week and expecting to make $250,000 a year. You're treating this like a full-time business, and you're probably already in some self-development, and you're already surrounding yourself with people that are doing this at a decently high level. So a little bit of an overview of what we're going to get from this presentation today. I'm going to share with you some of my personal learnings. I'm going to share with you some shifts in thinking, touching on the golden rule, and it's not what you think, some buyer needs that you absolutely need to make sure that you're delivering on. And our focus is really going to be the first conversation when you set the appointment to your first showing. We're not going to be talking A to Z. We're really talking like A to C. And then we're going to get into the meat of this, which are the 5 super simple accelerators. And there's just a ton of bonus material that you guys, I highly recommend that you take notes. David and Heather run an amazing business, and I imagine that they're going to have some amazing collaborative feedback to sprinkle in along the way. So I'm going over 5 today. And again, this is just from setting the appointment until the time that you meet them. And there are a few more, and for the sake of time, I just couldn't cram them all into our presentation today. Here's a QR code. I am also going to be launching a buyer agent masterclass starting in July. So if you want to get on the list for that, let me know. And there will be a super short survey, about 3 questions, because we love feedback from you so that we can always make our presentations better. So a little bit of my personal learning. So Q4 2022, not that long ago, right? I started to feel like, what is happening in our business? And that really, to put a marker on the time, is when interest rates started going up very rapidly. I felt like we were doing all of the right things, but business started to slow way down for us. I felt like we were being just as busy, but the results were not there. So I diagnosed this in the traditional way that we're taught to diagnose our business, right? How many leads are you generating? How many conversations have you had? How many appointments have you set? How many have you held? And how many contracts have you written? And I don't know if you guys learn to self-diagnose in the same way, David and Heather, but I was always taught that real estate is just a numbers game. If you have enough conversations, you're going to meet your income goal, right? So while that is true in part, there's so much more to this. And I really started feeling like in 2022, when I started self-diagnosing this, like I know there has to be something more, but I couldn't put my finger on it. So I told my team, okay, this is a numbers game. We need to have more conversation. We need to get more appointments on the board. We need to make sure that our appointment set to held ratio is higher. We just need to be belly to belly more with more people. And if we do that, we're going to be writing contracts. And wrong. Because, I don't know if you're like me, but I started to feel like, what the world is wrong with me. And if you're an agent in production right now and you haven't experienced any of these feelings that I'm describing, I would love to be interviewing you. We started feeling like we're working harder than ever and we're not going any faster. I started having thoughts of, man, do I suck? Is it the market? Do I suck? And we're hearing all the time, we're now in a skills-based market. So, I've been doing this for a while and I do think that I have okay skills, but I even myself started to sharpen my skill set. And if you're like me, you're like, okay, I've done all of the skill set uplift and this still isn't working. And by the way, I'm a firm believer that no matter how long you've been in the real estate industry, that you should always be leveling up on your skills, right? Nobody's too good to do continuous role play, to be learning new conversion strategies, all the things. You might even be like signing up for coaching and you still didn't see a lift in your conversion rate. And some of the questions that I ask myself as a business owner is, should I buy more leads? Do the lead sources that I'm currently run right now, do they suck? Should I exchange them for something else? Should I just totally trash everything that's been working for me and implement something new? And then, ultimately the question, if you've been in this business for long enough, every once in a while, I think you ask yourself, like, what am I even doing in real estate? Should I just quit this and go get a real job? Can you guys relate?
100%. Every day for the last 90 days, I felt like that.
So here's the thing, and our mutual friend, Sharon, I heard him say this at one point a while back, that conversion is not linear, right? From the time that a buyer thinks about purchasing a home until they actually purchase a home, it's not an A to B, B to C, all the way to Z. It's not a straight line. It's actually very messy, right? And sometimes a buyer thinks that they're going to be an A to Z and very linear, and then health issues happen. They start to have overwhelm with their job. They start to have relationship problems, uncertainty in their current relationship, like all kinds of things. And I think what it's hard for us to understand as salespeople is these are not things that our buyers are talking to us about. And I've recognized, and I would love to know if you guys are experiencing the same thing, that this stuff, there's so much more of it since Q4 of last year. Like, buyers are so much more emotional than they used to be. And this has always been a emotional intelligence game, like the ability to be in tune with your client's emotions at all times. and understand what's not being said and how to adapt to that. Are you guys kind of feeling the same thing?
Absolutely. I think that for me in Q4, once things got a little wonky, I think that our clients were scared to tell us things were weird for them because
Mhm.
all of their friends who referred, most of my clients are referral based, so they all know each other, so they didn't want to be the friend in the friend group who was scared of the market or having financial difficulties. So that stuff never came to us.
100%. Yep. So here's the thing. I told you that when I recognized that we weren't going to meet our goal if we didn't make a change, and my solution by old belief was contact sport, right? Just have more conversations, have more appointments, and we'll get there. But the reality is, and here's what I've come to realize, that this mentality creates more of a turn and burn business. You get to burn out faster because in order to have 30 to 40% more conversations, you have to allocate more time in the day to do that, right? This formula is do more to do more. And frankly, it's just a lot less joyful for me. So I want to kind of talk about some shifts in thinking. We've all seen, the Instagram social post from the NAR stats that there's going to be an anticipated nationwide, and this could vary market to market, about 40% less transactions for 2023 compared to 2022. And I've seen memes of like the Hunger Games, like all these agents are going to be going after fewer transactions. So naturally, like we will have to probably do on some level of do more to do more. But what if we thought about this in a way of doing better to do more, right? Increasing the quality. And when I really started to think about it in this way, I just distilled down what the main buyer needs are and focused on doing better around just that. So before we dive into that, I want to talk about the golden rule. And the golden rule with working with buyers, and really sellers too, is be incredibly picky on who we're giving our time to. And this is hard. It is so hard, especially when you're a newer agent. Everything looks like an opportunity, right? And it's hard not to be in a mindset of scarcity. Like you have to surround yourself with people that are going to force you to be in a mindset of abundance and uphold your standards. So we are obsessive about constantly top grading our database. We do this once a week. We have a visual, like everybody has a whiteboard. We also have this digitally, but somehow it just works better for my brain when I have this visually in front of me and in my workspace, who is on our A list. And these are people that we have considered to be a 5-star prospect. So I would encourage everybody to define what you consider a 5-star prospect. These are people who deserve our time. And one of the things that we consider a 5-star prospect right now in today's current market are have to buys. And sometimes have to buyers are in disguise right now. And that chart that we've seen before, something may come up, some emotional setback, some financial setback. And people who were a 5-star prospect yesterday, something may happen in their life that causes them to now be a 4-star prospect. And they come off that list and they go into a different plan, right? So with our 5-star prospects, these are some habits that we're doing every single day. We're working the hot sheet daily. David and Heather, I don't know if you guys have this in your market, in your MLS. Do you have the ability to pull a hot sheet button?
Yeah, we pull it every day too.
Absolutely. And I'm a firm believer that part of the magic behind working the hot sheet, well, two things here. Here in Orlando, we're in an inventory scarce market, at least the good stuff. And when the good stuff does come on the market, it's disappearing almost as soon as it hits the market. So we have to meet speed to opportunity. But also, I'm a firm believer, if we're focused on hot sheet and we're focused on our A list, what you focus on expands. And we're super focused on third showing. How can I get this person to a third showing? Because we have realized, and actually I got this from Mike Novak in Seattle, the Novak team. They've really recognized that conversion starts to really shift when you can get somebody to a third showing. And while you're working the hot sheet, always kind of have the mindset burning in the background of who else can this home work for? Because if this home could work for one person, how easy is it to send it to 3 other people that it may actually work for? And we always do this via text message, which is another tiny little shift because everybody checks their text messages. And if we need to get a time sensitive opportunity in front of somebody, sending it to them via email, like it just may be too late by the time they check their email. So anybody who's not a 5-star prospect, we have them on a lifetime nurture system. And I know David and Heather, you guys have like very strong lifetime nurture systems as well, that I steal some of your stuff from sometimes.
We steal from you too, don't worry. Or at
Okay,
least
yeah,
I do.
David does.
we're just a sharing group. So another kind of, and part of this presentation is not to just give you a list of 5 things. It's really to kind of introduce you to new ways of thinking, right? And ultimately the solution to higher conversion is super simple, not necessarily easy, but super simple. Just be obsessed with delivering an exceptional client experience. And when we can accelerate how fast we can get to these milestones, we can start writing contracts faster. And as we kind of continue to go through this presentation, I hope it's opening some gateways for you to think about your own business and tiny little accelerators that are already at your fingertips that you can install. But if we can accelerate the know, like, and trust, if we can accelerate the educational process, especially for first-time homebuyers, and especially getting buyers into the reality of the temperature of the current market, we're winning. If we can accelerate the feeling of safety and certainty, and if we can create momentum gracefully. I see a lot of sales agents try to create the wrong kind of momentum and momentum too fast. And I think that's often where our industry gets dubbed the term, they think of us as like used car salesmen, right? So you can close too early. You can go too fast for people. So you have to make sure that the momentum that you're creating is like song and dance, and that it's happening gracefully, but also in an accelerated way. So this is like art and science coming together. Anything for you guys to chime in on here?
For me, what has really been interesting, and I learned it from you, was to just slow down the process and get more in tune with what the client needs versus what I think they need.
Yeah. It makes me think of the Pixar movie Cars. I have kids, and when my oldest was young, we watched Cars so many times. And it's when he was told, in order to go faster, you actually have to slow down. Kind of the case here too. So what we're really focused on today here is not the A to Z, right? We're focused on that first conversation where you set an appointment to your first showing. So 3 things that every buyer that you deliver, 3 things that every buyer needs from you in order to deliver an exceptional client experience. And here they are, and they're not what you think. Dopamine. Like, we are just in such a crazy culture of like TikTok and this instant need for like instant gratification and constant dopamine. And fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to see it, we need to be delivering that in our business at all stages and along the way. And the second thing is certainty and safety. And the third thing is the ability to reduce stress, the ability to articulate the stress that they have for them, because very rarely is a buyer able to articulate all of the weird stuff that's going on in their head themselves. And David, you and I have done some team meeting hijacks, and a lot of like the conversion training that you have done, like you were excellent at reducing stress and pulling and articulating the question that people have, but they can't figure out really how to say it. Like you do a really good job at that.
Oh, thanks.
So dopamine, okay? And this could turn into a whole mastermind. Unfortunately, we just don't have time for that. But some things that are going to give our clients dopamine are speed to response, speed to lead, right? Having energy in the way that you're communicating with them, and having little things that you are going to be able to deliver that surprise and delight throughout the entire transaction. And I think the biggest accelerator, if you're doing anything, why not just implement a video component? Video, if you know the dopamine hit was like a level 2, if you do that same thing but you do it with video, you're now delivering it like a level 8 or 9. So why not just do it via video, right? Safety and certainty. In some ways to get to this quickly is, how can I capture my expertise and deliver it to them in a little nice present for them to unwrap? How can I demonstrate my process very early and in a beautiful way? And how can I demonstrate proof of success? And another thing that we have learned from our friend Sharon is, nobody cares about promise. Like the thing that's going to get people to safety and certainty right away is proof of success. Show me how you, tell me a story. Storytelling is the best thing here. Tell me how you have helped another buyer beat out multiple offers in this crazy market. Tell me how you have overcome a super hairy appraisal challenge. The little details of what makes you masterful in your craft are the little stories that we want to articulate and tell in a beautiful way. So reducing stress and worry. And the framework that I love to use is, here's what has happened, here's what's happening now, and here's what's going to happen next, or here are your options. So here's what's about to happen. These are the micro moments. And a beautiful experience in a buyer transaction, it's just a series of micro moments that are articulated well, right? Here's what's about to happen. If we can explain that to them, then we reduce their anxiety and we pull whatever stories going on in their head that they're telling themselves, and we're being the instructor to give them the proper visual that calms them down. And explaining, instead of saying like, hey, we're doing this, giving context behind why we do what we do. And this is the seller example. We're not launching your listing to market until Thursday because we find that we get the best traction and it's a weekend buildup if we go live to market on a Thursday. Or, if you see something you like, I want you to text message it to me because that's going to be the fastest way that I can research it because I'm out on the go all the time, versus you emailing me something. Context, context, context. And the most important thing is what happens next, and that's more of a broad. So another kind of pause moment. There are really 5 critical consultations, and I go into all of these deep in my buyer agent mastery course, that need to happen, and they need to be prepped, and your buyer should know in advance that they're coming, right? Some people have like what they call a Candyland page to explain this, but these are 5 intentional conversations that need to be proactive versus reactive in your client's journey. A discovery and an information strategy. A lot of people call this a buyer consult. And I'm a firm believer, if you start with a buyer consult, you will absolutely see a lift in your conversion. A lender consult. And I don't know about you guys, Heather and David, but I find that very rarely do my clients have a proper and thorough lender consultation unless they're working with my preferred partners. which whom I insist that they deliver that experience, because we're not qualified lenders. Like, we shouldn't be giving them the lender consultation. And it is so important for them to understand where they financially stand and what their buying power looks like before we even move through any of this other stuff, right?
I agree with you. I don't know if you saw that article that BAM released this week, but they said that I think it was 55% of buyers rely on their agent for lending information. And so as agents, we need to be well versed in it. But the undertone of that was we need to be well versed, but well versed enough to say, this is what I know, and this is where you need to go to get the correct information.
Exactly. Like a handoff and confirming that they received like the right information from their lender.
And Christine, for us here in Crested Butte, with it being a resort market, at first my thought when I saw this was, well, a lot of them already have all of their team, quote unquote team in place, right? Their advisors, their attorney, their lenders. And so we don't tend to be as involved in this lending process. When I open the primary market in San Diego, I'm going to be calling you guys because this will be a step that I'm not used to. But then I was thinking about it and I was like, even though we have folks that tend to come with their own quote unquote financial team in these resort markets, something that could be a cool way to lean into what you're talking about here are alternative ways that they could get savvy with lending. So primary market, it might be more a typical first-time home buyer if that's your audience. And then for your investors and savvy buyers, it's more of a meeting with the lender on creative ways that they can move their money around. So this was just an aha moment. Thank you.
That is so good. And we're a mixed market here too. We have like half what we call snowbirds purchasing here, overseas investors, and half, people that are going to be primary occupants. So that is a really good articulation of that. Awesome. Okay, so here it is, accelerator 1. Okay, and we're going to start to move a little fast. So I call this, you have to have a sticky appointment process. And running the sticky appointment process is more important than having the sticky appointment process. So running a sticky appointment process should, 1, lift your appointment set to appointment met ratio. And for us, our target is a 65%. So 65% of the appointments that we set, we want to make sure we're meeting. I'm okay with not having a 100% appointment met ratio. The people that are just truly not ready end up self-counseling. And sometimes after we set the appointment, we maybe will realize that this isn't a 5-star prospect, and it gives us the opportunity to unwind the set ourselves. So here's some things, take notes. We have in our sticky appointment process. And if you guys have some things that I'm not doing, I would love to hear the share. So you're on the phone, you set your first appointment, whether that be to show a home or for a buyer consultation. Text ASAP after the call. Something like, it was such a pleasure talking with you. I'm excited to help you through this process. And I think it's really important to tell them, like, I'm so excited to help you through the process. Like, do you know that buyers are know, like, and trust. Like, we've got to win on know, like, and trust instantly. If David doesn't say that he's excited to work with this buyer, and I talk to the same buyer right after David, and I express like insane enthusiasm, and I've never sold a home before in my life, the buyer is probably going to pick me because I'm way more enthusiastic and I seem to care more about actually helping them. Right? So make sure that you're expressing that excitement through all of your communications. Did you have a thought on that, David?
I did. How did you know?
Yourself.
So I was going to tell you that, or I was just going to say that I went through a time maybe 2 years ago where I was just like exhausted from this business. And yeah, I was busy. I have a really great business, but I was not showing my excitement to my clients. I have a process, and I was sitting at a kitchen table, and the husband looked at me and he goes, you're not very excited about this, are you? And I was like, oh, holy hell, like my energy is loud and how burnt out I am. And so when you were talking about being excited just now, I mean, that goes back to what Amy Belaine was talking about last week, just like having high levels of energy, showing up, and what Heather's taught us with time, magic time system of avoiding burnout when you see it's coming. And when you're burnt out and not excited, you're never going to convert. So it's so important.
Yep, absolutely. Although there are times where I am on burnout and I have to go to an appointment anyway. And somebody else that I follow, Jeff Glover, he has just kind of a statement called flip the switch. Like, we have to train ourselves to flip the switch. Even if we're on burnout, like, we still need to continue growing our business. We still need to win at appointments. So you have to kind of like pre-program yourself to deliver the excitement even when you're not excited. So second thing, in the text, like, sure, you can do just a boring old regular text like the average agent does. Probably the average agent isn't sending an ASAP follow-up text, but if they did, they would probably only do a super simple text message. Way to instantly accelerate this is just to shoot a selfie video and say exactly the same thing that you would like type out with your thumbs. I guarantee you they're getting instant time on brand with you. They're getting instant know, like, and trust, and you have like 1-1-1 big time. So second thing would be calendar invite. This just instantly demonstrates that you're a professional, right? I will tell you that probably less than 2% of all realtors in the industry who set any kind of an appointment actually send a calendar invite. And if you don't have something like Calendly, there's a million similar apps that are super easy to use. Get it. I think they offer a free version. A paid version might be like $7 a month, but this will instantly give you the authority where your client isn't going to be apt to set another appointment with the next agent that they talk to when they're on realtor.com, right? You're like stacking these moments of delightful surprises and you're delivering the dopamine, right? And the calendar also goes for like not just first appointment, but even when you already had your buyer consultation, you already did 2 rounds of showings and you're doing a 3rd round of showings like 3 weeks later, still send the calendar appointment. These are things that let the buyer know that you're just as excited to work with them now and get the job done as when you first met. So recap email. Explaining what they can expect from you when they meet, what they're going to be getting out of your time together, and give them an invitation to follow you on the social platform that you have the most content for them to go down a scroll hole on, whether that's Instagram or YouTube or TikTok or all the places. The more you can get them to spend time on brand with you before your first in-person experience, whether that's a Zoom call or an in-person showing, you're going to like win so big. And then after that recap email, I am a big believer in not sending this in the recap email so that you have an excuse to send them something else. So it should, even if the appointment is tomorrow, recap email goes out later in the afternoon, send them an email with some sort of a value asset. That might be a buyer guide. It might be top 10 buyer mistake PDF. It might be buyer checklist. Like, we all probably have things in our business that are assets that can be super high value for our people to consume. An accelerator to this would be something that's in video format. So if you have like 3 videos that you've recorded that every buyer should watch, you're accelerating the process on education. That way, when you meet with them, you don't have to spend necessarily as much time on education. You can just answer questions around education. A reminder text, and if you're using Calendly or a similar app, this should happen automatically for you. 1, it will like give them permission to cancel if they do in fact have something else that comes up. And I've heard some controversies around this, like, don't give them permission to cancel. And I don't know about you guys, but I want to meet with people who are like, I'm picky who I spend my time with. So I don't want to meet with somebody that I'm forcing them to meet with me, right? Like, I'm okay with them canceling if they realize that they really don't have any money for a down payment and they know that their credit score is a 480. Please cancel, right? And then lastly, and this, I haven't come up with a way on how to automate this. David, you're the automation expert, is the I'm on my way text. So when you're out the door, because sometimes I have to drive like 45 minutes to an hour to show a buyer a property. And if for some reason something has come up for them at the very last minute, I don't want to drive 45 minutes to an hour just to be stood up.
I don't necessarily have an automation way,
Mhm.
but I've used Calendly. And then what I've done with the text portion of it is I've just said, please, click here to confirm. Otherwise, I'm not going to be there. So I make it very clear that if they don't follow the directions, I'm out.
I like that. Okay, awesome. Okay, so accelerator number 2. This one is super simple. You don't have to take a lot of notes for it. Maybe a simple note. It's, I call it on my way latte. So, hey, I'm on my way. I'm stopping at Starbucks. What can I get you? And I actually got this from Hatch Coaching. Robbie T runs a really great inside sales agent team, and they have phenomenal outside sales agents. And this is something to like accelerate rapport with your client. You're like instantly, I mean, who does that? Who offers to pick you up a Starbucks when you haven't even met them yet, right? And the question is not, can I get you something? The question is, what can I get you, right? And I will tell you, every time that we do this, maybe 20% of the people actually take us up on it. But the gesture that you made, it just sets the tone for the appointment that you're about to have. So accelerator number 3. And Sharon has taught this with listings, right? As soon as you walk in the door, you say, are you ready to sell your house? So I just stole this from him and implemented it the same way with buyers. The first time we meet with a buyer, let's find you a house. Are you ready? And the thing that this does is it instantly draws out any objections for them if they're really not ready. And don't be afraid to tackle objections, questions, and concerns right away. Doesn't mean you have to answer and deal with those questions and objections right away. You can kind of put them in a bowl and set them aside and handle them as it's appropriate in your first meeting or your consultation. But it surfaces all of that stuff to the very front. And it's also kind of an NLP hack to get them to say yes, right? All right, showing number 4, or accelerator 4, this is a take more notes. So as you're putting your route together, send them a text and say, hey, I'm putting your route together. We have to be super instructional, and this helps protect your time, but it also demonstrates your process. And demonstrating process, again, creates safety and certainty within your client. Hey, I will be putting your route together. Can you please let me know anything all of the addresses that you want to see by Wednesday at 4 p.m. Because many of these homes will be homeowner occupied, and we have to give them at least a 24-hour notice to show. So you're giving them context as to why. You're not just saying, hey, let me know anything that you want to see by 4 p.m. on Wednesday. Like, that's weird, right? So do that. And then when you have your route together, send them an email of the route in the order in which you're going to see the homes. Include a map. For us, this is key because we have a lot of relocation, we have a lot of out-of-state buyers that have no idea about the area. And the big question is, how far is this from Disney, right? So we always put the Princess Castle on the map. That way people can kind of get their bearings, how far away it is to this or to that. And if there are certain things that are important to them, like their job, I may like put a pin on that on the map just so they can like kind of have some proximity on where they are and where they need to go, like how far away things are. And I like to have a list of all of the addresses that we're seeing, and I like to hyperlink those addresses so that it goes to like the Zillow page or the realtor.com page, because as they're driving, I like for them to be able to click on that, re-go through the photos. Sometimes while they're driving, after we've seen one or two properties, they will eliminate the next property because they're like, oh yeah, after looking at this one more time, it doesn't have that thing. It doesn't have a big enough backyard that's an absolute must-have for me. I think we can skip that one, right? And it also helps them, after they've had a full day of showings with you, go back to that email and click on all of the links and remember everything in a very linear way. I'm a very linear person. And I like to include how much drive time there is between one house to the next. And I don't know about you guys, but when I'm out showing properties, they always ask me, oh, how far away is the next one? And instead of me just like fumbling through my phone, putting it into the GPS, I can just look at my sheet and I tell them in advance, okay, the next property is a 20-minute drive, or the next property is a 45-minute drive. Do you guys need to stop for a potty break in between that? And I do always plan for bathroom breaks or lunch breaks if we have a lot of showings. We always bring snacks and water. I don't tell them that I'm doing it. This is one of the surprise and delight things that you can do. I do it, one, for surprise and delight, but secondly, it actually really helps with conversion. There are certain, biotypes that like when they get hangry, like game over, like no home is going to be a great home if somebody gets into that state, right? And I bring printouts of every single listing. You have one copy for you, you have one copy for the client. That way they can make notes on it. You can refer to stuff like how long has it been on the market? That's a question everybody asks when we're out showing. You can answer HOA questions, and most importantly on your copy, so you have the listing agent's phone number in case you need to call them while you're live out in the field. And telling them how we're going to go about this entire process. So tell them that they need to rank every property that we see, and our ranking system is a 1 through a 7. I actually stole this from Dan Beer in San Diego, his top salesperson. And anything that's ranking a 5 or a higher is something that we should consider making an offer on, right? It creates a guide for them making decisions. And we're ranking based on location, functionality of the floor plan, price, right? And when we think about all those things, where does it fall out? A 5, 6, or a 7? And if it's anything below a 5, like we're just not even going to talk about it again. And also I give them a rule, like if we walk into something and we know right away that we absolutely hate it, like let's not spend 20 minutes walking through the house. Like, let's just maximize your time and let's go to the next. So wrap up for the day. And sometimes this is like hard because sometimes the day goes in all of these different directions, but it's important at the end of the showing that you be the person who has a high maintained level of energy, and you can recap the day and you can tell them, replay to them what went well, what didn't, and what you think the next step should be. So accelerator number 5. And this, I like to have it on early on when I'm meeting the client. And sometimes I frame this in a way that, hey, I know you just met me, But at some point, usually after our first round of showings, I am going to professionally ask you for your business. So after your first round of showings or after your first initial consult, just ask the question. So David and Heather, do you want me to be your agent?
100%.
Every time, of course.
6 words. They're so magic, and I guarantee you they will accelerate the process.
Mm.
Do you want me to be your agent?
Christine, oh, go ahead.
If they say no, right, don't be afraid of the feedback, right? One, it's going to make you a better agent if it really is something about you. But two, if they say no for any other reason, it means they're not a 5-star prospect.
Christine, I was going to say, do you have any hints for some of our guests that are watching, and when they hear you say ask for the business, they cringe, right? We've all been there at some point in our business, right? Where I feel like every single one of us, including the seasoned agents, can remember that time, or maybe we're currently in that moment where we're like, ooh, that sounds too upfront, or that doesn't sound like me, or that doesn't feel right. Do you have any suggestions for them?
I get it. And it never doesn't feel like my heart races a little bit when I ask the question. Never. Like always. My nerves get a little tingly when I'm about to ask the question. But here's what I will tell you is if you don't ask this question, you're going to find that your met to under contract ratio is like insanely high. When I started, so pre-Q4 2022, we were finding that our met to under contract, like used to be 1 out of every 4 people we met, we were putting under contract. Then as the market started to shift a little bit, it was like a 1 out of 6. And then when I went through all of this, what the heck is going on, I was noticing we were at like a 1 out of 10. So if you want to compress this process, you just have to get uncomfortable with it.
I love that. I mean, really anything that growth requires a moment of feeling uncomfortable. So I would share that, like everything that Christine just shared, you just have to understand that a part of it is feeling that it's going to be uncomfortable. And I actually feel like it will go away over time, because you can't deny the results it'll give you for going through that temporary discomfort.
And one way you can minimize how uncomfortable it feels is don't practice on the client, get a role play partner, and be practicing your buyer consultation with your peer. Be practicing your first showing, your first experience with your clients with your peers. And when you say it out loud, you're building the memory muscle. And every time it comes out of your mouth, whether it's in a role play setting or real life, you get a little bit more comfortable with it.
100%.
Right. So accelerate. This is my last one. This is a bonus one. So always when you're creating like bookend moments and your micro moments, like every single thing, you have to have what's the next logical step, even if it's in prospecting, right? So the next logical thing for you to do would be to talk to a lender. Okay, so the next logical thing for us to do would be to set up a time to strategize about what your home buying journey looks like. The next logical thing for us to do is to go out and see some homes. Okay, well, you've identified that this home ranks at a 6 and checks all of your boxes. The next logical thing for us to do is to make an offer and always be outlining what's next. This is the biggest thing that creates safety and certainty and like moves the vehicle forward, right? So here's a recap. We're wrapping it up here. The 3 things that you have to deliver to every buyer for an amazing experience: dopamine, certainty, and reduced stress. When you deliver an amazing experience, You are probably using a lot of the accelerators, and things are happening in a more joyful way, not necessarily for you, but for the client, and you're lifting your conversion rate. So here's a short recap of the 5 accelerators that I gave you. Sticky appointment, on my way latte, let's find you a house, the showing optimizer, ask for the business, and the next logical step, or the what's next. And I just want to say thank you so much, David and Heather. You guys are amazing moderators. And I personally am tuning in to all of your weekly sessions. And I think that you guys are just providing a ton of value to the industry at a time where we really, really need something that's different. So I just want you to know that you are so amazing and that I appreciate you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being here.
We feel the same.
Awesome. So I think we have a few minutes. We can do some Q&A, but here is the QR code again. Few short survey questions to let us know how this presentation was for you guys. And if you want all of the accelerators, we'll get those emailed over to you. And if you're interested in the Buyer Agent Masterclass, jumpstarting in July, you can put your name in there as well.
This was amazing.
Amazing. And Amy says, Christine, you are awesome in all caps.
I do know Amy Boleen, and she's pretty darn awesome herself.
We love her. And she crushed last week on her webinar. This was amazing, Christine. Like, I gained so much value, and I don't know about everybody else on this call, but if you haven't had a chance to capture that QR code, just shoot us a message and we'll get you everything you need to sign up and to receive the additional accelerators that we just didn't have time to cover today. But just, that was so phenomenal. And it was the real life little things that you can add to increase your conversion rate. I mean, that is the name, right? It's not just going out and working your face off and getting burnt out and being tired. It's actually having the work, but then starting to increase your success rate as you move along.
Yeah. And I found that at some point, if you're aligned with the right people, you know what the right things to do are. But in between that, there are ways to optimize. And that's where like growth and things start to happen a lot faster, is when you can dial into the optimization of things.
Yeah, I agree. I just wanted to share with you, Christine, even though you didn't ask me to share. I love that you just gave me permission to say no to a lot of potential buyers, right? By qualifying them up front. If they're going to go through the flow, then cool, we'll work together and I'll ask for your business. But if not, I don't have to worry about it. And I'm always the guy who's like, well, you never pass up an opportunity. You never say no to something because you never know what it could lead to. But if I keep saying yes to all this, I'm saying no to so much more. So I love that you walked us through that. So thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
You know, something else I want to touch back on is really early in the webinar, you guys were joking about, you know, borrowing each other's content when we see something. And, you know, I really want to lean into something that I'm just more and more aware of as I continue into my older age. I'm like, you know, I really wake up every morning grateful for who I'm surrounded with. And when I look at like the content that you're putting out, Christine, when I look at the content that you're putting out, David, and other friends on here as well that are joining this call that I know really well. And when I just look at the level of which you guys show up, it makes me better. And I just love like seeing everything that you guys do, from the emails to your social media, to the content, to your process. And I genuinely feel like just being in rooms with you guys, whether it's a real room or if it's a virtual room on Zoom, it just, I feel the growth, and I feel myself getting better every time I'm around you guys. So I just want to say thank you for being part of that, one of those people and part of that growth, Christine. And David, of course, which you guys know.
And thank you for creating the room. Heather, seriously, putting this all together and just creating the environment. And yeah, until next time.